All right, so welcome to SJREI. This is Lori Graymont, and today we're going to talk about how you can unlock extraordinary wealth in real estate. Today is going to be the start of a 12-week series that we're doing, and normally these classes people charge for, but I just want to share this. I believe that there's a lot of knowledge, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys. So the way we're going to work tonight is I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. You might have saw the logo there, Funding Face Off. That's one of my new ventures. So I'm going to explain a little bit about that and what our mission is. And then we'll get into winning mindsets, knowing your why, getting prepared, picking a path, and then questions. And over the next 12 weeks, we're going to talk about different types of real estate investing, the life cycle of real estate investing, and we'll get into land development and places that you can participate, whether you're active or passive, and how to choose that path. So Funding Face Off is an idea, a TV show that I created. And it was actually kind of born from a couple different things. One, I see so many investors go out there and they find a deal that it's a real deal, but they don't know where to get help and they don't know where to get the funding. The other side of things that I see is that people won't go and even start real estate investing because they're fearful they might actually get a deal and they don't know how to get it funded. So Funding Face Off is kind of fun. Think of Shark Tank. We have a panel of deal makers that analyze deals. So presenters come, they share their deals. We have 3 presenters on every show. They present their deals. The deal makers choose one person to eliminate. Yes, it's harsh, but they choose one person to eliminate, and then the remaining 2 face off to get the funding from the deal makers. And so it's a lot of fun. We're getting ready to come out with some of our shows here early spring. You'll be able to see them. And until that point, what we're doing is we're educating people. We want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to change their life because one deal really can change somebody's life. With the panel, we have over 100 years of combined experience. And our goal with the show is to educate and elevate real estate investors through impact investing. Impact investing, in our opinion, is when you make an impact on the environment, like the neighborhood, the community, and you're impacting your investors, you're impacting everybody who's involved. So this is our panel. I'm the Deal Diva. And then next to me, you'll see Kevin Harrington. He was on Shark Tank. He's part of it. We have John Nolan, who is a fix and flipper from Oklahoma and a pilot. Mike Hambright, he runs Investor Fuel and a couple other masterminds. He also does a data service where he can mail out to find investors or find people who want to sell to investors. Then on the lower window on the left-hand side, we have Travis Johnson. He is a fix and flipper from Minnesota, and we call him Bigfoot. He's from Minnesota, which I'm from Wisconsin, where we talk the same language. You know, the language is, yeah, you betcha, don't you know? And then in the center, we have Cowboy Joe. Cowboy Joe is also into land development, and he is a wealth strategist. So he helps people build wealth through real estate, much the same as I do. And then on the right-hand side, we have Roddy Garcilaso, and Ryan is a rehab depot. So he understands rehab on the inside, the outside, and he helps investors make sure that they know enough to not be taken advantage of from general contractors. All of these people have experience in business and real estate. And so when deal presenters come up against us, you know, we have hundreds of years of experience, and they can start pitching a deal and we can tell where the risk is, we can tell where the reward is, and it becomes really fun. It's like a family. My apologies. I got to let a few more people in. All right. So again, our goal with the funding face-off and with the profit share live is to help people elevate their life through real estate investing, through different opportunities, because not everybody is going to be active, not everybody's going to be passive. Some people are going to be in between. And so what I'm doing is I'm sharing the starting point for everybody. And then as we do these 12 weeks, there'll be information shared for all three of those types of people. So winning in real estate starts with the mindset, the right mindset. 90% of success in business, including real estate business, is all about the mindset. And a lot of people, they fail because they look at real estate as an elevator rather than a staircase. And what I mean by that is they assume that they are just going to get in and it's going to go up and there's not going to be any bumps. There's not going to be anything that they have to overcome. But if you think of a staircase, you take a step, you learn a little bit, you take a step, you learn a little bit. That truly is wealth building in real estate. There's a story that I learned when I was doing land development in Texas. I was buying about 5 acres from a gentleman who had thousands, like probably 10,000 acres. And I asked him, I said, like, how did you get all this land? And he goes, from the cows. He goes, from the cows, little lady. And I'm like, okay, you're going to have to explain more. Yes, I'm from Wisconsin. I understand cows, but I didn't understand what he meant by it. And he says, when I was young, I started with my first cow. And I learned how to make money with that first cow. And then I added a 0 and I had 10. I learned how to make money with 10 cows. And then I added a 0 and I learned how to make money from 100 cows. And he said this to me very sternly. He says, I never skipped a 0 because what you learn at each level allows you to keep it at that level if you fall back. So if you go from 0 to 1,000 and you didn't learn the lessons at 100 or at 10, you're going to go back from 1,000 to 0. And so that was just a lesson that stuck with me. And here I thought that it was a story that he made up. I later found out that it's a story that's often told in the farming communities, but it's a great lesson. So failure, a lot of people are afraid of failure. And we're kind of even taught this in school, just you only want to get A's, don't fail, all this other stuff. But the reality is that failure is moving you forward just as much as success. And sometimes failure moves you forward more. But the key is that if you don't get back up, that is when you truly fail. Failure is just learning. You've learned one way that it doesn't work, but you have the opportunity to find out if there's other ways that it does work. And I can't tell you, having run SJREI, how many people I've talked to. They went out and they tried one type of investment, they lost money, and they stopped. That was it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if you've lost money, you've just bought your education. You just paid for your college degree in this type of real estate. Go out and try it again. But the fear of failure has stopped them. So there's a fine line of what you need to do. So failure is a teaching tool. Success is a teaching tool. And opportunity lies on the other side of failure. So failure can be a motivator or failure can be a demotivator. It's really your perception of how you take it and use it. So fear will cripple you, or you can choose to have fear empower you. Now, the other thing that often happens And I have, years of people attending and never investing. I call it edutainment. They're coming to be educated, but they're only being entertained because they never take action. And so it's the action. You have to take action and get out there, get something going. Now, some people will go, well, I'm afraid, I don't want to take a choice, they don't want to make a decision. Well, the reality is indecision is a decision. You've decided not to move forward. So take action, make quick course corrections. People say, fail fast forward. It's true. If you're not taking action moving forward, when you get to the end of your life, you're going to regret that you didn't at least try. And then the other thing is inspiration without action is fantasy. I hear all these young kids, I say young, 25 and under, like, I'm going to go out and make, multi-millions in real estate. And all they're doing is taking courses. They've never bought a house. They've never put money down in escrow. They've never written an offer even. And they're living in fantasy. So you need to have action behind what you want to do. You guys hear this all the time, know your why. It is important to know why you're doing this, because there are going to be days when you want to turn around and go backwards. But at that point, you need to have the perseverance and resilience to move forward. So a lot of people talk about, let's create a fantasy board. It's actually called a vision board, but I call it a fantasy board. And let's write down our goals and let's set these goals so big and so wide. But the reality is, if you're doing this because you want something, like let's say that you want to retire yourself, like you don't want to work at a job anymore, and that's your goal. Do you have to write that down? Most likely, no. Most likely, you already know that goal. And when that is a part of you, that is what you want to go after. If you're having to write it down, it's most likely because you can't remember what you're committing to yourself for. But something like, you want to retire yourself, you don't have to write that down. You know what it is. Now, this is the other thing. People think that real estate is a get rich quick system. Well, can it happen? Yeah. You can have a good deal, take you from 0 to 100. But the reality is, like I said earlier, if you didn't learn the lessons at 10 and at 100 before you get there, you might have a good possibility of losing that. Our brains are not created for abundance. Our brains are created for survival. And so it may feel risky to have gone that fast and had that much money. Unconsciously, you will work to sabotage it. And so it's super important to put plans together, to have strategies there, and to take it step by step. Like we said, the staircase. Our brains are great with the 10% rule. And what that means is learn and go 10% more, 10% more. So if you have a goal and you're starting from 0, make the goal just 10% more than what you are. And yes, you can't do technically 10% more than 0. But if you have no houses, start with 1. And then maybe the next year, go to 10. Don't start out thinking, I'm going to go buy 100 houses. And you've never owned a house. You've never even lived in the house that you own. That's not going to be success. Okay. You will not be there. Your brain will go into a hyperactive mode trying to protect you, and actually things will go the wrong way. The other thing to recognize is we as humans overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we actually underestimate what we can do in 5 years. So you might be getting started, or maybe you have a few, rentals, and you think, okay, I'm going to take my few rentals and I'm going to go to 50 in 1 year. But the reality is maybe you only get to 12 in 1 year. But if you keep going and you just keep going consistently, you will underestimate, maybe in 5 years, you could actually have 200 or 300, because all of a sudden, buying one at a time, you realize you could actually be buying 3 or 4 or 10 at a time, right? So a lot of times we underestimate what we can do in 5 years, but we overestimate what we can do in 1 year. So test yourself. What are you asking of yourself? Because there is also a psychological game that happens, right? You put in your mind, all right, I'm going to get, let's just say 10 houses by the end of this year. And you get to the end of the year and you have one. Well, now you think next year, well, I didn't get my 10 this year. I got to do 20 next year. And so, like, you're shooting so far ahead that now you're kind of like in this negative cycle, because you went up so high in fantasy and you didn't take the actions. Now you double the goal. Now that's only going to be a bigger drop. So it's really important on your 1 year goal to make it realistic. And then on your 5 year goal, make it a little bit more unrealistic and work towards that. So now that you understand the mindset, you understand the assignment, what's the next step? Step 2 is getting prepared. Whether you're investing in multifamily, or you're investing in syndication, or you're investing in any kind of real estate, it's going to require real estate investing tools. And those tools are knowledge, credit, money, and time. Every investment takes all 4 of these. The good point is they don't all 4 have to be yours, right? You can borrow somebody's education or somebody's time, somebody's credit, somebody's money. So that's what leverage is about. Leverage everybody's everything. And, one of the things as an educator that I will always tell people is you will pay for your knowledge one way or another, right? You will pay for it either earning it through the school of hard knocks or learning it from someone else. If you earn your education, it's going to cost you more than just money. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you your reputation. It's going to cost you even your ego, which sometimes is good. But when you are working with somebody and you're learning from somebody who's been in the business, it's much easier, it's much cheaper, and it's kind of like the easy button. You're going to go further, faster. And the key for real estate is, pick your niche. You can be a jack of all trades and a master of none, but you're not going to move forward. There's a study that has been out about multitasking, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but for many years there was so much about, oh, I'm the best multitasker there is out there. But what they found is that when you are multitasking, you're actually slower at each task you're doing than you would be if you hyper focused on the one task, finished that, and went to the other. Because there's kind of like this switching time in your brain where you're having to go back and forth. And so it is much better to stay focused. It's the same thing in real estate. With running the club, I can see people, I think it's called shiny object syndrome. Oh, this month is Airbnb. Oh, this month is syndication. Oh, this month is self-storage. And they keep switching. But in doing that, you're not giving any investment any time to really grow and have value. So I'm just going to take a little comparison of other assets versus real estate here. And this chart has a lot going on, so let me just explain a little bit of it here. So there should be a legend up in the right-hand corner for you, and it kind of shows average returns, okay? Average is, I guess average. But it's showing you that real estate typically outperforms other investments. Does that mean that other investments are bad? No, it doesn't, because other investments also have different um, opportunities. So, for example, if you look at real estate, while the average return might be higher, you'll see that the liquidity, which is the orange, is much lower because you go into it and you're in. You know, whenever somebody asks me what the biggest risk of real estate is, it's time. Time is the biggest risk. And so that there's not a lot of liquidity there. Whereas if you look at some stocks and bonds and mutual funds, you'll see higher liquidity. Now, one of the good things about real estate, in addition to the returns, is that it's less volatile. Some of those more liquid are more volatile. And so these are all things that you need to take into consideration in your portfolio as you're putting your retirement together, as you're putting your plan together. It doesn't have to just be for retirement. It could be that you just want to retire early from a job. But these are all pieces that should be considered, and you need to determine what ratio of each one is important to you. Like how much liquidity is important, how much cash flow is important. You know, can you put it there and have consistent cash flow coming in? Is that better than having more liquidity? So that's what this chart is showing you. So, real estate investing strategies. It's sort of like going to Baskin Robbins. There's 31 flavors, or actually 60 or more. And you need to choose because you can't have them all. And they all don't fit you, right? So hold on 1 second, please. I need to find somebody here in the list. All right, so real estate strategies. Thank you for your patience on that. There's two sides to real estate. There's the passive side and there's the active side. Now, a lot of the active side is actually not even investing as much as it is running a business. But we won't get into that today. We'll talk about that in the future. But it's important that you choose, you know, what side is going to fit your lifestyle? What side is going to fit your ultimate goals? You know, buy and hold, they call it mailbox money. But if you're managing your properties properly, there's going to be some involvement, even though it's on the passive side. Short-term rentals, definitely the active side, unless you hire a manager to manage it for you. You know, lease options on the passive side, those are pretty passive. It's a good way to rent out a property and have the person that's staying there, you know, kind of take care of it themselves. Commercial apartments, definitely on the active side, unless you're involved in the limited partner side of it. You know, subject to on the passive side, again, it's another way to buy and hold, or land banking, industrial. But then you've got, you know, some more active sides, like if you're the sponsor of setting up a deal, or you know, tax sales, like you're going to the tax sales and buying the tax liens or tax deeds yourselves, those are active. So it's really important to take time as you're picking out a strategy and understand, is this going to be active or passive? If you're choosing passive, you know, here's some of the strategies. The tools that you're going to need is, you know, what's it going to look like on the timeline? Is it a long-term or short-term type of investment? Are you going to need money, your own money or other people's money? A lot or a little? And then because I was running out of room on the screen here, you know, I had to put two of these columns together. Credit, do you need credit, your credit, or is it somebody else's credit, or not really? And what's the knowledge level? Is it basic, specific, extensive, specific? And then you can see on the time, the low time investment is what typically makes it passive. A few more strategies on the passive side, private lending, that could be short term. You could do private lending for 6 to 9 months. That one would be a passive activity that is short term. Again, what type of credit is needed? Is credit needed in some of these? Not typically in the passive side. Time commitment's low, but usually your timeline for the passive side is long term. If you're looking at active investing, you're going to see things like short-term rentals or building, those they're long-term mostly in this page. You are going to need money. You are going to need credit because you're usually getting loans from banks or other people. And the knowledge is usually a little more in depth on the active side. Definitely time. You will need time. Some of the short-term opportunities that have less knowledge needed is like your wholesaling and your wholetailing. And that's typically where newbies start, but you don't have to start there if you understand where you're going and you partner with people. Okay. So passive, active, pick a path. And part of the path comes into knowledge, risk appetite, capital availability, and time availability. What knowledge do you have in this particular strategy? If you don't have knowledge, is there somebody that does that you can work with? What kind of risk appetite do you have? Are you willing to go after it all to get that 25% return? Or would you rather have more safety and stay at that 8% return? What capital do you have of your own to deploy, or of friends and family do you have to deploy? What does that look like? And then time. How much time do you have to really devote to this? Are you working full time and you have kids involved in activities? Kids are busy from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. And, you're trying to do something on the active side. You really have to assess what is your time availability right now. So I'm going to give a little bit of an example here, and then we'll have a poll. So on your screens, a poll will show up and you can vote. So we're going to talk about Dr. Johnson and his lifestyle, and you get to vote on whether he should be an active or a passive investor. So Dr. Johnson is a pediatrician. He has quite a nest egg. He's gotten all of his loans paid off from schooling, and he's looking at retiring in 10 years. He wants his money to work. He's a little burnt out. He's working, no less than 60 hours, but more like 70 hours a week. And his wife is taking care of the kids. She's at home. And he's thinking that the fastest way that he can put his money to work is going into a rehab, because real estate always goes up. And he just knows that, he can pull this together. His wife is great at decorating. And so he wants to go into doing rehabs. My question for you is, should he be an active investor, or should he consider passive investing? So let me bring that up. All right, you should see choices on your screen. Go ahead and vote. Okay, if you haven't voted, go ahead and vote. We're going to close it down in 3, 2, 1, done. Yeah, most of you are right. Yeah, he definitely should be passive. unless his wife wants to do the rehabs herself and she's got the good team around her, he himself probably should consider passive investing. And the reality is, if he's in the right deal, he can make just about as much money as the sponsor, as long as he's working with somebody who knows how to do rehabs and he structures the deal to include some profit share. Awesome. Okay, so we have Susie Smith, and she is a recent college graduate. She is a spitfire. She's got so much energy. Her major actually was in finance, and she has a brother who is a real estate broker. So Susie is thinking that, she wants to get into this. She maybe doesn't have as much knowledge, but she's got a lot of time. And she loves watching the HGTV. And so she thinks that she could be a rehabber, that she could get out there and do rehabbing. And so my question to you is, do you think that without the knowledge, and maybe without the money, should she be an active investor or a passive investor? So we're going to go ahead and launch the poll. Give me 1 second. I am trying to get to there we go. All right, do you guys see the Susie? Nope. All right, let me see what happened here. We ended. We're going to launch Susie. It says a poll has been launched in this meeting. I don't know, Matthew, if you're there, if you could help. All right, well, since I can't seem to get it going, I'm going to say that Susie Smith should probably be active, but my suggestion would be that she go on the wholesale and wholesale side until she learns her rehab skills. Rehabbing is one of the most intensive knowledge and strategies that's out there. There are thousands of decisions that have to be made. In rehabbing, you get decision fatigue, and it is definitely not a place that newbies should be. So that is that one. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so Joseph Kim is from Silicon Valley. He's retired from the last startup. He has time, he has some money, but he's kind of thinking he wants to do some traveling. And so he's trying to decide whether he should do some traveling and enjoy his life with his wife, his kids are off to college, or whether he should go in and be active. So on this particular one, he's looking at a syndication that he can join. And in the syndication, he would put money in as a co-GP, meaning that somebody else would be with him and he would be running it more on the active side. And so on this particular one, let's see if we can get it to come up this time. Do you think he should do that as an active participant, or do you think he should go on the LP side, pluck his money in, travel the world, and go on the passive side? And I am trying to launch it. All right, guys, I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. It's not launching. So on this one, again, this comes down to exactly what I'm asking you guys to do, which is to choose the lifestyle you want. If he values traveling, oh, wonderful, thank you. All right, vote, it's up. We got it up, there we go. Do you want him to do passive or active? Okay, we're going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Yeah, so a lot of you are passive, right? And some of you are active. And quite honestly, he could go either way. He can completely go either way because it's based on what his lifestyle is. What does he want out of life? The reality is that, some people value their family and want to spend time traveling, and others value making their impact by creating product such as, storage units, providing housing, assisted living like we're doing. And neither is right or wrong. It's what's right or wrong for you. And that's why it's so important to start with the end in mind before you choose an investment strategy, because once you've invested your time and your money, your credit and your knowledge, it's hard to back out. You're invested. So ask yourself, what is it that you want as the end goal, and which strategy is going to fit for you? So again, a recap for tonight's session is, know your why. Why are you doing this? And then get prepared and then pick a path. So I'm going to open the floor to questions. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead and raise your hand. Questions? All right. I'm not seeing any hands being raised. So that will be, sorry, one more call for questions. Anybody? If this piqued your interest and you kind of want to explore for yourself which type of strategy would work, feel free to book a call with me. There's no charge for this. We'll talk a little bit, and then I'll share with you my thoughts, and I'll share the strategies matrix with you so that you can look at that more fully. So again, just go out to Call with Lori and book a time, and we'll chat and we'll give you a strategy.
Kevin has a question.
Okay, let me see. I'm not seeing Kevin. There we go. All right, Kevin. Hi, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, I've been
Yes.
getting your emails for quite some time. I'm in the real estate business and been doing it for quite some time, but I do more of the financing on the commercial end and a lot of commercial and little apartment type transactions. So basically, with your business platform, you basically locate the deals that catches your interest, and then you put together a team of investors that fund it, and they participate on you going in there, getting the property either built from ground up or rehabbed or put together and then reselling and then split it in the profit or giving a certain percentage back to the investors that invest with you on certain transactions.
Yes and yes. So if somebody has a project that they're looking to get funded, they can bring it to Funding Face Off, and we might participate in the deal as a funding partner and potentially as knowledge partners. But most of the deals that we do, I mean, I'm also a developer. We've got our own projects that we do. Most of the projects that we have been brought to us by somebody that was like, hey, I found this, but I'm really not sure how to do it. Will you partner with me, or will you buy it from me? And so then we buy it, and then we share capital partner. Basically, we reach out to our database and we say, does anyone want to be an equity partner with us? And then a lot of times what we do is preferred return along with a profit share. And that's how we do most of our deals. We have some larger deals that are true PPMs where we pool funds. And like even Funding Face Off, we put together a fund to fund other people's deals where you can participate in other people's deals. And on the Funding Face Off fund, we split 70% goes to our investors and 30% comes back to us as the sponsors. And so in those deals, we are actively trying to get at least a 25% return on our money. And so that, pays out great passive investment dividends. So, yeah.
Is there a preferable deal that kind of fits your cup of tea more than other ones?
Um, we're value add, almost all value add.
Okay.
So, I've done over 2,500 fix and flips myself. We've got 2 senior land entitlement deals that we're doing. I've done use changes, like taking single family houses and turning them into commercial, so like,
Mhm.
dentists and insurance offices can go in there. So we've done a lot. It's usually value add, whether it's at the land stage, which really is kind of my thing right now. Is I love going in and finding land that's undervalued, changing the use, and then
Exactly.
selling that to a developer that's going to go vertical.
Okay. One last question.
Yeah.
What's your normal time frame to start a deal and to close it out and reach in the deal close out and the investor gets their percentages back and able to do another deal going forward?
Well, the past few years have been nothing but normal. I mean, they have not been normal, right? Because we've had COVID, we've had economic upturn with the capital markets freezing up. And again,
Exactly.
everybody asks, what's the risk? Time is the risk, right? So we have projects that usually complete within 2 years, 18 months. And,
Mhm.
we're in projects that we thought were going to be 3 years and we're at 4. But the values have gone up significantly to
Absolutely.
support that. So
You
it's just
capture
knowing
that.
how to underwrite and how to add the value.
Very good. Okay. I'll give you a call. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for the questions, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Look forward. Look forward. Have a good night.
Awesome. Anybody else have questions? Okay. Well, that's tonight. Next week, we're going to dig into a little bit more on the foundations and get going. Oh, Robert, I see your face. Does that mean you're going to ask a question? No. Okay, you just let me see you. Yeah, we're going to get into the foundations and we're going to talk about some of the life cycles of real estate so that you can understand where you can add value at each stage. So I want to thank all of you for your attention tonight, and I wish you a good week, and until the next time, farewell.